I was folding laundry when I first noticed it. Her phone, left face down on the bed, buzzed softly with a notification. Normally, I wouldn't even glance. Her privacy was hers. But the buzz was followed by another, then another. Quick bursts, like some group chat gone rogue. She was in the shower, humming that same melody she always did when she was relaxed. Stevie Nicks, Landslide. I used to love that about her. The way she'd get lost in music, washing off the day like it never touched her. We'd been married 6 years by then. Long enough for patterns to feel safe, for silence to feel companionable, and for certain hums to still make me smile. But that night, something caught in me. Call it instinct. Call it the way the screen flashed again and again until it finally stilled. I turned the phone over. It was open to the camera roll. Maybe she'd been scrolling through it before she hopped in the shower. Maybe it had been left open by accident. But what stopped me cold wasn't the randomness. It was the preview of the thumbnail staring back. A man's hand, not mine, resting low on the back of a dress I didn't recognize. Her dress, one she never wore around me. I hesitated. For a long breath, I told myself not to open it. But that moment passed. The second I tapped into the roll, it was like pulling a thread you already know will unravel everything. There were 23 photos in that burst. Him, her, dim lighting. A lounge or bar, maybe. They were close. Too close for coworkers, too casual for strangers. Some were just candid. Her laughing, him brushing her hair back. One showed her leaning in, lips barely an inch from his neck, her eyes half closed. It wasn't graphic. It didn't have to be. And then came the videos. I watched one. Just one. 17 seconds long. No audio, just the grainy footage of her smiling up at him, sliding her hand into his. The timestamp was from 2 nights ago. She had told me she was working late on a client deadline. When she came out of the shower, towel wrapped tight, hair damp and curled around her shoulders, I had already set the phone back down, face up. She didn't look at it. "You're quiet," she said, stepping into the closet. "Just tired," I replied. That was the first lie. Not hers. Mine. The first time I realized I was starting to play the same game. Holding my cards close, waiting for the right moment. That night, I couldn't sleep. I lay beside her, wide-eyed in the dark, watching the red numbers on the alarm clock blink through the hours. Every so often, she shifted in her sleep, murmuring my name softly, like she still meant it. The next morning, she kissed my cheek before heading out to work. I watched her from the kitchen window as she drove off in the car I helped her pick out last year. Her playlist still playing faintly through the open window, some upbeat indie thing. She didn't look back. I didn't confront her. Not yet. I needed to understand what I was seeing. I needed more than 17 seconds of silence. So I waited. Over the next week, I watched her routine like a detective watches a suspect he loves too much to arrest. She came home late twice. Claimed it was client drinks. Her stories were consistent. Too consistent. Perfect in that unnatural way that made them feel rehearsed. And the phone? Always locked. Always face down. I started noticing little things I'd missed. A second bottle of cologne in the car's glove box. Hers, but not a scent I wore. Lingerie tucked at the back of her drawer, tags still on. Dinner receipts in her purse from places I'd never been invited to. I wasn't angry. Not yet. That's what surprised me the most. I just felt hollow, like I was walking through the shell of a marriage that had already ended, and no one had bothered to tell me. So I did the thing I swore I'd never do. I backed up her phone. She'd plugged it into the home computer to charge once while syncing her music. The cloud connection stayed. I found her camera roll on the system 2 nights later, tucked inside a shared folder she clearly didn't know still existed. That's when the real story came out. Photos I hadn't seen. Months back. Different hotels. Different clothes. Same man. Sometimes with his hand on her lower back. Sometimes with his arm around her waist. Always with that easy intimacy I hadn't felt from her in nearly a year. One picture stood out. It wasn't romantic, not even close. Just a table. Dinner for 2. Empty wine glasses. A cake with a sparkler on top. The caption said, "My favorite night." It was from our anniversary. Only, I wasn't there. I shut the laptop and just sat there. Kitchen light humming overhead. Refrigerator clicking in the background. Everything normal, yet nothing felt real anymore. That was the night I began planning. Not for revenge. Not even for confrontation. Just for truth. Because whatever she was going to say when I finally asked, when the lies started pouring out, I already knew the line she'd use. It's not what it looks like. But it was. And the camera roll told the whole story. The hardest part wasn't the evidence. It wasn't even the sleepless nights or the aching pit in my stomach every time I looked at her and remembered a photo I was never supposed to see. No, the hardest part was pretending everything was okay. That week, we went to brunch with her sister. I smiled. I poured mimosas. I laughed at inside jokes like I hadn't seen the man she whispered to in hotel elevators. I paid the check, left a generous tip, and kissed her hand in the parking lot. That's what made it worse. She let me. I started tracking more than photos. Her calendar, her GPS data, the back end of her fitness app synced with her smartwatch. She'd set it to private, but I knew enough tech to bypass that. Turns out, she ran a lot more than just 3 miles a day. Tuesday morning, gym. 35-minute route to a building that wasn't a gym. Thursday lunch. Client meeting. Same address. Same block. Same man. His name was Wes. I learned that by accident. Her smartwatch pinged a message while she was in the shower again. Can't stop thinking about last night. W. Just one letter, but it felt like a brand. Burned right onto my chest. I looked him up that night. Sales director at a real estate firm. Divorced. Early 40s. Salt and pepper hair. Smile like someone who's always been told he's charming. The kind of man who calls women beautiful, like it's a game. I watched a video he posted from a networking event. She was in the background, laughing, wearing that same emerald dress I hadn't seen in months. She didn't just cheat. She recycled lies. Friday evening, I told her I'd be working late. A fabrication, of course. I left the office by 4 and waited outside the cafe she always said was boring. Funny, then, that she was seated there an hour later. Outdoor table, 2 lattes, and Wes across from her, reaching for her hand like they'd done it 100 times. She looked happy. That wrecked me more than anything. I left before she could see me. Drove around for 2 hours with the windows down, trying to remember what it felt like to be wanted. Not used. Not tolerated. Wanted. By Sunday, I had the confrontation scripted. Not angry. Not emotional. Just matter of fact. I even rehearsed it in the mirror. But life doesn't wait for rehearsals. The moment came unexpectedly, like they always do. We were sitting on the couch watching a documentary, something about cold cases. She had her legs over mine, sipping tea like nothing in the world was wrong. And in that quiet stretch between interviews, she looked at me and said, "You've been distant lately." That was the door, just wide enough to walk through. "I saw the pictures," I said. Her head tilted, smile fading, not vanishing. Just softening into something neutral. Defensive. "What pictures?" "Your camera roll. You didn't log out of the cloud." Silence. Then, like I'd predicted, her voice dipped soft. "Measured. It's not what it looks like." I stared at her for a long second. "It's exactly what it looks like." She pulled her legs away from mine and sat up. "You went through my phone. You left the door open. I just walked through." She didn't cry. That was the worst part. She didn't panic or break down or even try to explain. She just stared at the floor. "I never meant to hurt you," she said. That line, that empty cliché, the one people use when they knew all along what they were doing. I nodded slowly. "But you did. Every time you kissed me after being with him. Every lie about late nights. Every anniversary you spent somewhere else." "I was confused," she whispered. "Then why does it look like a pattern?" Her face twitched. "Barely, but it was enough." I stood, walked to the bedroom, pulled out the folder I'd been quietly building, printouts, screenshots, date stamps, and laid it on the coffee table. She didn't touch it, just stared at it like it was ticking. I sat back down, my voice steady. "You don't need to lie anymore. I'm not trying to trap you. I just want the truth." She shook her head. It wasn't serious, but it was enough to hide. Enough to risk this. Us. "I didn't think you'd find out." I almost laughed at that. Almost. We didn't speak the rest of the night. She slept in the guest room. I lay awake in the dark again, but this time I wasn't chasing clarity. I had it now. Cold. Clean. The next morning, I packed a bag. Just essentials. No theatrics. I left a note. Not bitter. Not blaming. Just real. "I know who you are now. That's enough for me." And I walked out. I didn't know where I was going yet, but I knew I couldn't stay in a home that had become a crime scene. Not one with blood, but with betrayal. It wasn't what it looked like. No, it was worse. Because what it looked like was a mistake. What it was a choice. 100 little choices. And the camera roll told the whole story. I didn't go to a hotel. I didn't call a friend. I just drove. Out past the city lights. Past the familiar exits and the ghost of every place we'd ever been together. Eventually, I ended up at a coastal motel, the kind with faded signs and floral bedspreads that reek of old pine cleaner. It was quiet. It gave me time to breathe. She didn't call that night. Or the next. I'd expected a barrage of texts, some desperate attempt to twist the truth back into shape. But nothing came. Just silence. A silence I thought I wanted until I finally had it. By day 3, the numbness started to crack. I scrolled back through the folder I'd compiled. Not out of obsession, but because part of me still didn't believe it. As if, somehow, the pictures might rearrange themselves into something more innocent. But they didn't. There was one photo I couldn't stop returning to. Not one of the intimate ones. It was blurry, badly lit, clearly a quick snap from across a room. She was laughing, throwing her head back, hand on Wes's forearm, eyes lit in a way I hadn't seen in years. And I hated how familiar that expression was. That used to be me. I started to remember all the cracks that had formed before the break. The long silences over dinner. The way her phone became her lifeline, even at midnight. How I'd reach for her in bed and find only air, her back turned, already lost in another world. I wasn't perfect either. I know that. I buried myself in work. I missed dates. I forgot little things, her favorite wine, the name of the book she was reading. I let life become routine and love become background noise. But I never lied. I never made her feel small or second. I never let someone else take her place in my head or in my arms. And I certainly never turned our life into a story someone else got to co-star in. A week passed, then 8 days. On the 9th, she finally reached out. Just a single text. Can we talk? I stared at it for a long time. I typed, deleted, typed again. Eventually, I replied, I'll come by tomorrow to get the rest of my things. That's all. No response. When I walked back into our home, it felt different. Emptier. Not because anything had changed physically, but because I had. I could see the truth now in every corner. The love letters we'd once framed. The vacation magnets on the fridge. The photo of our wedding day, still hanging by the stairs, now looking like two strangers caught in a good lie. She was in the kitchen when I walked in. Pale. Makeup-free. Just a hoodie and leggings. She looked tired in a way that went deeper than sleep. I'm sorry, she said. I know. I messed up. You did. She tried to reach for me, but I stepped back. I'm not here for closure, I said. I already found it. She looked down. You used to look at me like I was everything. And now? I asked. Now you look at me like I'm nothing. I shook my head. No. I look at you like someone I used to know. There wasn't much left to say. I packed quietly. Took only what was mine. Left the shared things. She could keep them. They weren't mine anymore, not really. As I was walking out, she followed me to the door. Do you still love me? She asked. That question sat between us like a storm. I looked at her, the woman I once thought I'd grow old with. The woman who made a different choice. And for a second, I almost said yes. Out of habit. Out of grief. But instead, I said, I love the version of you who never made me doubt. Then I walked away. That night, I deleted the folder. Not out of forgiveness. Out of finality. Because the worst part of betrayal isn't what they do to you. It's what it makes you do to yourself. The second guessing. The sleepless nights. The erosion of your own worth. But I made it through. Weeks passed. I found a new place. Small, quiet, sunlit in the mornings. I filled it with things that were mine. Slowly, I started building something that felt like peace. And every so often, I still think about that camera roll. How it started as a mistake. How it became a mirror. Not of her. Of me. Of who I was. And who I refused to become. People ask me if I'd ever take her back. If I could ever forget. I don't need to. Because now I know that love isn't proved by staying. Sometimes, it's proved by walking away with your dignity intact. The camera roll told the whole story. And in the end, I chose to write the rest of it myself.